I'm going to try to demonstrate to you how to shoot the crossbow and the relative noise it produces versus shooting a conventional compound bow and the relative noise it produces. And we'll shoot the crossbow first. You take the horseshoe off, place it in the track and around the string. Get my little crank, put it in here, turn it back, and as I turn the crank, it will draw the string back, and when the string goes into the safety mechanism, I will hear two little clicks. One click sets the trigger, the other click sets the safety. If I have to adjust the volume to adjust this per the rest of the video, I will do both the bow and the crossbow exactly the same amounts, so not to mess up the relative sound volumes. You take a bolt, load it one with the groove side down, turn on the bow, the millet sight, push the safety, and shoot. Let's compare the same thing with the bow. Now here we have a conventional Matthews bow, compound bow. I want you to listen to the relative sound levels when I shoot it. And let's go see what we shot. As we walk up here, this was just a little 25-yard demo. The arrows are different diameters. They're different lengths. They weigh different. They have different masses. They're tipped differently. Now, see, this is the crossbow, and this is the conventional bow. Now, you'll see a little difference in the penetration. Now, I didn't do exactly a perfect job of hitting dead center, but they hit a relatively same amount. And you will see a little difference in the penetration of the heavier poundage crossbow. Now on game, do you really need the difference? I think not. I think the traditional bow will go through with sharp broadheads just about as well as anything you need. But there is a little difference in penetration the crossbow produces. Well, let's look at some comparison data. After all, that's why we're doing the video. Let's look at weight first. The bow and the case combined, the total walking around weight is 27.5 pounds for the crossbow versus 21.2 pounds for the vertical bow. So that's about 6.5 pounds difference. The bow and the arrows alone, the quivered bow, is 11 pounds for the crossbow versus 6.25 for the vertical bow. There's a pretty good difference there. Now if we look at the bow alone without the arrows, as if you have a in the tree hanger and you hung your quiver up, we really see a difference there of 10 pounds, 10.1 pounds for the crossbow versus 5.5 pounds for the regular bow. Now let's look at the arrow setup. For the crossbow, I have 18-inch 2219s with 3 5-inch Duravanes on there, and that is tipped with 125 grain Muzzy 4-blade broadheads. That is a little bit heavier at 439 grains than what I have On the conventional bow, which is 373 grains, using 27-inch Easton Axis 400s with 2-inch blazer vanes. And on the end of that, I have 4-blade interlock 85 grain broadheads. Let's look at the performance of the bow as a system. Now, on the Crossbow, I'm using historical data, and I have 2 data points, one with the limb silencers and one without the limb silencers. And the limb silencers are additional mass that the system has to propel forward, and when you add them to it, they will take energy off the bow and they'll slow the bow down. So I'll use the slower of the two, which is what I've been currently shooting when I kind of retired the bow out. And the last data I have on it shows that I was shooting 306 feet per second and developing 91.5 pounds of kinetic energy with this 438.8 grained arrow. Now compare that to the Matthews as last recorded. I had 286 feet per second with 373 grain arrow and developed 68 pounds of kinetic energy, which is about what the peak weight was on the draw. Allow me to anticipate your next question. Why is it the vertical bow used 68 pounds peak and was able to develop 68 pounds kinetic energy on my arrow, and the Crossbow with 185 pounds published peak weight was only able to develop 91.5 pounds kinetic energy on the arrow? And I think the answer to that is very simple. It has to do with the draw or the stroke. Because if my memory serves correctly, on my vertical bow I have it set up with a 28.5 inch draw length cam. And on the Crossbow, if I can read my tape measure correctly when it's drawn, I have an 11.5 inch draw. That simply means the Crossbow only has 11.5 inches of string travel to push that bolt, where I have 28.5 inches of string travel to influence that arrow on the vertical bow. It's simply more efficient. So you need a tremendous amount of bow on a Crossbow because you have a lot less contact time. In fact, if you look at some of the designs, they produce faster arrow shots sometimes, not just by trickery of using lighter arrows, but sometimes because they're using a much longer stroke, which is what we get when we have say a 30-inch setup versus a 27.5 inch setup. The same bow, same poundage, but with a different draw length will be slower for the shorter draw. It's just physics.